Ladies and gentlemen, I got this little thought I want to share with you. Rules. Rules are made that, when followed, would produce a certain outcome. That's what rules are. Now, when these rules have a different outcome, for instance, if the outcome that is pursued is to have a part, let's say with society, have a part of society living good as an outcome. And in order to do that, they achieve that at the expense of the other part of society. So those rules are vindictive, they are immoral, and they should not be followed. So what should happen is that those rules should change. But now, in the event the one that is benefited has power, and they might not want to relinquish their achievement, and so they might want to hire a force to make people who lost out as a result, and you might even want to put them in jail as a way to force them to do something. Then if that don't work, you might want to have guns. I mean, to shoot them, to kill them if they don't conform to those who have achieved power through that process. Now, when you have a society like that, where one part is benefiting and the other isn't, then there's no amount of force that's going to keep those who are not benefiting in line at all times. They might try to pretend and keep some order, but eventually it's going to get out of order. You're going to have a lot of stealing. You're going to have a lot of violence. You're going to have a lot of robbery. You're going to have a lot of break-ins. You're going to end up having a lot of drug, prostitution, murder, all kinds of stuff, as also a result of not achieving morally your objective. So this is what we usually have in America today. We think about the poverty that exists in America. Yeah, you think about the 1%, they're doing well. I went through a neighborhood the other day that shocked me. Looked like I was in fairy tale land. People living like this. Now, I've been around, but I'm in Minnesota and I'm seeing people living like this. This is the way I envision the ghettos changing to under the proper plan. And so this is why I struggle so hard. You know, ladies and gentlemen, what I learned is that people who have a little bit of anything based upon the system that we live in and the way we've been trained and indoctrinated, they don't want to give it up for anything. I talk about peace and prosperity. You know the story. Like paradise on earth, heaven on earth. People who got a job making minimum wage don't want to hear that. Why? Because they put their faith in minimum wage. They put their faith in one day they might get an increase. Their salary might go up. They forget about the fact that every time the salary goes up, so does the cost of other stuff. But as far as trusting in what I talk about, no, because you got to have faith in that. Not only do you have to have faith in it, you must prove your faith by actively participating with the program. And it's just so foreign. It's so foreign. We've only talked about heaven and paradise after we die. That's come from our spiritual advisors, the preachers, the popes, the fathers, the friars. You know, they only tell about this stuff after we die. It was against the law to propagate the idea within people's process that they could have heaven on earth, that they could have peace on earth. No. No, they weren't allowed. We weren't allowed to have that kind of thinking as human beings. And when in the churches they would say it's possible, but in the next life. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. That's because they've been taught that way. I taught myself a different kind of way. I stepped out after becoming a man. I wanted to see what it was like out there in the world. And so I jumped out there with great ambitions. Ambitions that were proven to be successful. But then I saw some strange stuff that I didn't like. I saw poverty, crime, and violence while living in Chicago, working as a veterans counselor. So I decided to commit my life to make a change to end poverty in America. Not to just be a part in that struggle, but to see that it ended. And right away, making a decision like that got its own problems. My wife decided that's not the husband she wanted, so she left me. I quit the VA, ended up going into the service to find out that now I'm a part of the apparatus, and you got a commander-in-chief who does not even care about the poor, and you're in the middle of that. Well, I went into the military to die, to give my life so the woman that left me could get a check, so she could know that I really cared about her. But they didn't have that war with Iran, so I'm still living. And so I decided to quit the Navy, but I wanted to eradicate poverty. I promised myself that I would not be able to do that on my own. I mean, to live on my own as if in heaven. In other words, I wasn't going to try to get that house over there that I just got through talking about that I want to see the ghetto changed to. Unless everybody else could do it if they wanted to. And so I spent years and years out here on this here struggle, trying to give voice to a lifetime of people being indoctrinated about something else. Being indoctrinated that would allow them to allow, in 2016, the devil to take over the country. Now, they weren't ready for what I brought. And so I've volunteered my service to America since that time. I've had maybe 2 spot jobs washing dishes someplace for a minimum wage, $6 or something an hour, just so I could have some money in my pocket to get back and forth. But giving that up, and if you put it all together, in my retirement age, all of my work put together allows me to live on $300 a month from Social Security. $300 a month. And I can only use the medical service from if I have a emergency in the hospital. Yeah, that was my sacrifice, to spend my time to see that you, the American people, could have a better life. Oh well, I got blessed in one sense. One of the people that I was trying to reach and get to see the light as I am trying to reach you happened to have been my wife. She can't see the things as I see them, or she's just like you. She wants to. One time she really wanted to, but she knows that in order for this to be successful, you, the people, must be willing to change. And she just doesn't have that kind of confidence in you. So she have her confidence in being able to work. And by her being able to work, I've been able to not sleep in tents like many of those sisters and brothers that are in poverty, sleeping in shelters like many of those sisters and brothers living in poverty, eating at soup lines, outdoor toilets like many of the sisters and brothers that's living in poverty. And I don't think that this wife of mine today, don't think she doesn't think about how much better we could be living if I had a paycheck coming in. But having a paycheck coming in for me would do nothing for the people in this country that's living in poverty. Some might say, well, you've committed your life to it. What has it done? It hasn't done anything. Well, at least it has marked me. It has marked me as one man in America who thought it was more important to try to end the suffering of other people in this country than just trying to make sure that I can live above it all. And so I'm not ashamed of that. And you know what? I'm out here trying today. And I want you to know, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know, yes, I know you're afraid of people. You're afraid of power. You're afraid of police. How many times people have thought that when George Floyd was right there being murdered before those people, how many of you have thought, if you had been there, you could have taken a brick or something and thrown it at Chauvin to make him get out that man's neck? Or if you didn't do that, maybe you could have walked by and just jumped over there and knocked him off. Then that could have saved George Floyd's life. But you know, if you had done that, they probably would have shot you. George Floyd probably would have lived, and you probably would have got shot. But how many of you could have cared enough about George Floyd that you would have taken that risk? Well, I know the people that were standing there watching it, they didn't care that much about George Floyd. And the many brothers that have died the same kind of way, perhaps not with a knee, but with a bullet, but from the same power structure, and we still sit back waiting for it to stop. It's not going to stop. As long as we sit back waiting for it to stop, it's not going to stop. And I'm saying to you again, since I have this moment, it is time we stop. Just as Dante Wright got murdered on 2 days ago. People in the streets breaking out glass buildings, doors, windows, snatching stuff out of stores. Yes, we know you are hungry for something or want a better life, but that's not the way to do it. How many brothers have to die for you to keep breaking in stores to get enough to add up to something? No, we're going to have to stop. There's enough crime and violence and hurt and persecution from the system that's going on across this country that's affecting everybody. And we just cannot keep jumping out there. We will be catching strokes and heart attacks and arthritis and everything, and white-headed like me. And still would not have achieved anything. There's one thing that we need to focus on. One thing, ladies and gentlemen, listen to me. There's one thing that we need to focus on. And that, if we're going to march, if we're going to protest, we should stand up for that one thing. And what is that? A change of the system. A change to a system that is just. A change to a system that works for all of us. A change to a system that produces peace, put the guns away. Prosperity, put the poverty out. Freedom, put the bondage down. Education, put the ignorance down. And health care, put the sickness and disease down. And life, the ability to exercise our gifts. That's what we should change our system to. Let that be our goal. And we have to do it in order to get it. So this is what I propose to the American people. This is how we fight poverty. We stand up. You got the Poor People's Campaign over here struggling, trying to do what it can do. You got this little organization, everybody trying to be on top. There's no one on top, ladies and gentlemen, but God. No one on top. Not Martin Luther King, not Malcolm X, not Jesse Jackson, Andrew Young, Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Eddie Marcus, nor you. There's one on the top, and that's the power of God that we cannot see, can't touch, can't feel, but the evidence is all around us. And now it's going to be made more evidence because we're going to allow the Spirit of God, as we see that Spirit, as we understand that love, to live within us. And we are going to become a physical manifestation of it. What we know God to be is what we become to one another. And I'm sure beyond a doubt, some of us are going to be falling much shorter than what God is. In fact, all of us are. But as we look to the power of love, we will be drawn and we will be taught. We will be taught by love and not by ego So, ladies and gentlemen, this is how we get rid of poverty. It took me, what, 15 minutes? No, I hope it didn't take. Well, it did. Well, let's hope it does some good. Until next time, Eddie Marcus saying goodbye.